When we talk about the US-Israel-Iran war in the context of ITAD and the e-scrap world, this conflict hits, in my opinion, the basic plumbing of energy, freight, and compliance that our business depend on. The fighting in and around Iran has pushed, as you know, crude oil into the low $90 a barrel and disrupted flows through the Strait of Hormuz. That obviously shows up immediately as higher diesel prices, rising fuel surcharges, of course, ocean carriers either cutting Gulf sailings or routing around the Cape of Good Hope down in South Africa. Per mile collection costs go up, export moves get more expensive. Of course, you have a lot less predictable and thin margin contracts that never anticipated this kind of fuel shock. UPS, for instance, has just announced a temporary surcharges of 64 cents per pound for U.S. Middle East shipments and $1.50 per pound for U.S. to Israel shipments. At the same time, AI buildouts, as you know, have sent DRAM, NAND, and enterprise SSD prices sharply higher, some roughly doubling over a few quarters. Servers and memory-rich asset resale values have climbed to several times their historical averages, giving providers that can test, grade, and resell a way to offset higher logistical costs. Operators built entirely on destruction services don't have that cushion, and nowhere is the disruption clearer than in Dubai. Over the past decade, the UAE built a sophisticated, compliance-driven hub for the so-called Global South. Enviro serves a recycling hub, R2v3 aligned services, free zones, custom advantages, etc., making it the command center where US OEMs could consolidate hardware, sanitize data, and eventually re-export under a predictable regime. By early 2026, routing through Dubai had become the lowest risk way for many global ITAD firms to serve the Middle East Africa region. Then the war militarized the strait and flipped that story almost overnight. Container traffic stalled, and as you know, war risk insurance exclusions kicked in, as well as air cargo capacity for high-value components shrank as carriers pulled back from Gulf lanes. Now, lanes that used to be profitable turned into losses. Dubai-bound shipments were paused, effectively turning off a hub that sat at the center of many downstream plans. So what emerged in its place is forced localization. The US ITAD operators have been pushed to process more material domestically or near shore while experimenting with alternative hubs such as Singapore, Europe, Oman, or even East Africa, none of which, by the way, fully replicate Dubai's mix of capacity and connectivity. Basel PIC permits tied to Gulf routes can't simply be copied onto new corridors, so inventory sits in warehouses because the paperwork for alternate routes doesn't exist yet. To find out more about these topics, the fuel issue and the Dubai issue, follow these two links. These are two of my latest columns on resource recycling.